Hello everyone and welcome back to my DJ journey. So for me, a remix DJ is about creating layers to make new sounds. And what I want to show you today are some tips and tricks which on their own might not feel all that important, but when you put all these components together, it can turn your remixes from good to great. But also, I want to show you how I turned this sound and this sound into an awesome sound like this. So let's get on with it. Okay, so thing one, it's where I place my cues. So if we just come down here, whether it was when I was on my Denon, I had a Prime 4 at some point, so I had the pads down here, or even now I'm on the Pioneers, I use the same thing. And that is, my first 4 cues are always, I leave them for actually my hot cues. As in, I press it and I let go and something's gonna happen. In this case, and this is a great example, I know that A here is where I actually wanted to mix this track from. So if there was another track playing, I would hit A, this would go, and it's probably got the right transfer points and the right energy. Easy. Now, over here, E and F are always my loops. Without a doubt, I'd never put a loop here. Why? Because when I'm mixing all over here and I'm trying to do some patterns over here, I might be thinking, oh yeah, there's a loop I want to press or I want to trigger. The last thing you want to think is, where was it? I know E is always the main loop that I will want. And if there's a second loop that I'm going to use, I don't often have more than 2, it's going to be F. And I always have them in orange. Then lastly, these 2, and I try and keep space at the end for the last 2, are my marker cues. I will never actually use these. These are visual aids, so I know when this track reaches that point, so in this case, when it reaches H, as it passes to H, that's probably me over on another deck, and I'm gonna go, right, A. Or if it's on this deck, A, because I need to know when I'm gonna mix out of. And that's how I try and simplify my cues so I don't have to think as much, which means I can be a bit quicker around the decks. Okay, thing 2 is when I create loops, and sometimes you get an acapella and it's clean. What I mean by that is, I can create a loop wherever I want, pretty much, and there's nothing going to interrupt that loop other than maybe the next part of that vocal. Yeah, that's up to you to place it where you want. However, when I use tracks which have either vocals or drums and I want to sample that into something else, the thing I learned is about quantize on, quantize off. Now let me show you what I mean. Now, if you look down here, forget that you see all orange. I've just broken my first rule, my first thing 1. That was just so I could show you something. So ignore this. So if you have a look down here, let's get to it.
Kick it from me one time. Kick it from me.
Right, there it is. I don't know if you heard it. I'll play it again. I like that kick it from me one time, but did you hear what wasn't right with it? Let's go again.
Kick it from me one time. Kick it from me one time. Kick it from me one time.
Hopefully you heard that horrible click. Now I've made that mistake before. Fortunately, not when I was playing out, but it was when I was recording one of my YouTube sets. And then you can hear it come out, and every time that loop goes round, there's that horrible click. Now it might seem obvious when I'm saying this, but I guess we all learn from our mistakes. I'm trying to help you not make the same mistakes I did. So, how do we get around that? If we just come back down here, when I created this loop the very first time, and I'm just going to destroy it so we can do it again. It's come out. I was on here, I've got quantize on, and I knew it was 4 beats, and then that's it. I'll reset it as H. Let's go.
Kick it from me one time. Kick it from me one time.
So there it is. So what I learned was, I'm often around messing about with quantize. You can just about see it here on these decks. But regardless, I turn quantize off. Let's just delete this loop again. So if quantize is off, I will set, don't know how well you can see that, this is marginally before that red line. Now if I set my 4 beats, let's save it.
Kick it from me one time. Kick it from me one time. Kick it from me one time.
How clean is that? Now I've got a perfect sample, just like if I'd gone and bought something from Splice, or if you've just gone and bought an a cappella, but I've used it from a track. This track is called Kick It. This is a full actual track doing its own thing with other loops, etc. that I use. So, what else? Thing 3 comes down to selecting the loop at the right part of the track. Now, once again, I'm not talking about creating loops within a cappellas, because if it's an empty a cappella, you're using the vocal as you want to use it. I'm talking about, and I quite often do this, I'll find a track and love something that happens within that track, and I have no intention sometimes of even using any other part of that track, just that part of the loop. So it's important, if you do that, that loop works and it doesn't become boring. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me show you something. So both of those loops, I love those because they go so well with this other track that I lay them over. One, the first one didn't have any bass to it. The second one I can use on a breakdown of the other track because then it's got its own bass. I would never swap them the other way around, else you've got the basses clashing. So I use those and I flip between them. But let's see if I can remember where I did this. Right. Now, did you notice that? Now, I've done this on purpose, purposefully bad, to hopefully demonstrate something, because I have done this in another one of my YouTube sets, and one of my mates messaged me and he said, yeah, I liked it when this part of the track was playing, but it got boring really quickly. And it was because I'd included a riser. If you notice on the first 2 loops that I showed you, they are just that nice bump 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 bump. It works really well. But on this one, I would never use this because it's got a riser in it. Because that part of the track, if we release it where it was,
Kick it from me.
But I might use the bit just then. So that riser is because the track is trying to do its own thing. However, if I have that on a loop elsewhere, what that's telling the listener, the audience, anyone who's dancing to it, when we hear that riser, we're expecting something to come. But actually, if I just use that as a loop, all I'm doing is going, ready, ready, wait for it, ready, no, ready, ready, wait for it, no. And that's the repetition. Loops are repetitive, but that's the wrong type of repetitive. So be careful where you set your loops. Set them in sensible places where it almost sounds like you've created that loop purposefully and not over a riser. Okay, so thing 4 is about, and that's what I said at the start, it's about how you create layers to make your new sounds. And actually, the last part I want to talk about today is what I did on my MPC. That creating layers, and I said at the start, how did I get this boring sound into something else? So as a reminder, it was this sound, and I turned it into this. Now, that might sound a bit weird right now. I know what you're thinking, but it works with something else. I want to show you how I got there very quickly. Now, we're going to build some of it together, but this is the finished product and it took me a while to get there. But I want to show you what happened along the way. So this was the sound. This is the track that I want to play this sound with. They sound good together and they sound in key. If I just show you by using the step sequencer, let's make sure we're on the right sound. Go to the step sequencer. I've already built it. So all I did was add in that sound there, add it in there, add it in there. All I have to do now is press play start and it will start playing. Now, if I have it coming in over this track, let's see how it goes. So it sounds good, right? But it still sounds a little bit aggressive, and I didn't want to just take that raw sound. I wanted to do something more with it. And this is where I got to the point where I started using and realizing how many effects I've actually got on the MPC that I just hadn't appreciated. So let's come out of here. Let's go back into this sound and we'll go as if we were gonna edit some of the effects ourselves. What I did, and I'm going to go away and come back in a second so you don't have to watch me scroll through everything. And I found air stutter. If you can see that down here. Now if I add that, this is now applied to that sound that we just played. And in the step sequencer, now listen to it. It's just changed it completely from that initial sound, which we heard. So then I started thinking, well, what else could I do with it? And I'll admit, it was from a James Hype video that he did, I don't know, maybe a year ago, where he was talking about one of his big tracks that he'd done, and actually the noise that he'd made, which is this iconic noise, had come from a crowd. It was ambient noise of a crowd, which he then manipulated within a door and made it into this awesome lead. So that stutter idea, I thought, right, that's one thing. How can I layer something else over it? And that's where this second part came in. So I come back into here. If you go here and listen to this. So the same with this. I went and, if that's that sound, yeah, there's no effects on it yet. And we add in where was it? Oh yeah, it's down here. We add in that stutter again. And now go. How cool is that? How cool is that? So all I did was, I took that, and if we come back to the one that I've actually, the one I finished earlier. Now that sounds messy at the moment, but trust me, it sounds good. So that is the stutter. I used air maximizer, air reverb and transient shaper, but on this is where I've also got, if you can see here, that was the original sound, then that vocal that I played, which we added the stutter to, and then I've just added this synth one shot in, and I've layered a few sounds over this, so they all come out through this one pad. And when I did that, and I didn't just do it randomly, I was doing it whilst working with this track, Bring This House, and saying, okay, that sounds cool. How would this sound? And in fact, I'll take you through a little bit of that just now. And I got to this point where it just worked. So when we bring it back down here, and like I said, I've got on this pad, I've got both that stab and this vocal. All on this pad with stutter and some extra effects. This now really works. Sometimes you mess about with it on here and you're like, okay, how does that sound? It might not sound brilliant, but you put it with this and it somehow just brings the dirt together. So let's show you what I mean. That's just so dirty. I can't get enough of that. So this is all part of a remix that I'm doing. You know, the point of making this sound over here with this track, Bring This House, for it to work was because I wanted to use some acapellas, Hallelujah and Beating Heart, like I said, all together. Now, this isn't the finished product yet. I don't mind showing you where I'm up to with it. I think it's about 90% of the way there. Yeah, you can tell me what you think. The idea behind this one was when I have these components, I try and think what happens before the drop, what happens after the drop. And quite often I don't want, and it's not true all the time, but the same a cappella doing exactly the same thing before and after. So what I tried to do with this, create a bit of chaos in sound as this was as this was building up. It's called Beating Heart. So Beating Heart is the main vocal, then Hallelujah Anyway comes in with a lot of echo at the right point just to create a little bit more chaos to the vocals. And then as this goes and this is about to drop, that's when I come in with the MPC. So I'll show you quickly what this should sound like. got excited. Said I was going to bring the vocals back, and then you kind of feel it and go, oh, I wonder if this would work. So yeah, brought a few things together for you today. Little bits of what's going through my mind when I'm trying to put a remix together, those components, where do the loops go, how do the loops sound, where do I get the loops from, is the loop repetitive, have I got little clicks in there, things I need to remove, and then moving over onto here about layering sounds. And you know what? I don't think I'm finished with that yet. I like that. I think I need to make it a little bit brighter. I like it. It's got a real feel to it that goes with this track, but I think I need to pull it out a little bit more out of the mix. So, hope you enjoyed that. This is my DJ journey, and I don't know where I'm going with it. Hopefully, as it progresses, there'll be bits of me doing this and me actually out in the wild doing other things. But if you're a first timer here, thank you for getting this far into the video. And if you come back, thank you for being here. Please consider liking and subscribing this and sharing it. So I will see you in the next one.